Good afternoon, I am Precious Mzeya Sakaleji. Welcome to Camnet TV Midday News. The headlines. MKUSHI man dies after a manganese dump site collapsed and buried him alive. CHISHIMBA KAMBWILI ready to pay illegal money obtained in 2016. Details coming through after this commercial.
Hello, have you heard about MSika? Do you know that you can advertise for as low as 150 kwacha for 30 seconds? Well, MSika is here. Advertise on MSika between 17 hours and 18 hours. Just tell us about the services that you offer and we'll gladly put you on the market. For more details, you can contact
+260 953 995099. +260 962 444 726 or +260 971 177 467.
MSika, allowing your business to grow.
And now the midday news in detail. National Democratic Congress Party leader CHISHIMBA KAMBWILI says he is ready to pay the money he received in salaries when he stayed in office after the dissolution of Parliament in 2016. Speaking in a telephone interview with Camnet TV from the Copper Belt, Mr. KAMBWILI says while he acknowledged the order from the Constitutional Court, he feels the judgment is unfair because the ministers were ordered to continue working by President Edgar Lungu. In total, Dr. KAMBWILI has been ordered to pay over 58,000 out of the total amount of 4 million from the 68 ministers. GIA's Initiative Executive Director McDonald has welcomed the decision with a few reservations on what they expected the court to do. Details in the following report.
The decision by the Constitutional Court yesterday, 7th December 2020, to order the former cabinet ministers, deputy ministers and provincial ministers who remained in office after Parliament was dissolved prior to the 2016 general elections to pay back the salaries they got within 30 days has been received with mixed feelings, while others accept the order by mere fact that the Constitutional Court is the last court. They are wondering where the person who ordered them to stay in office is. In total, 64 former cabinet, deputy and provincial ministers are supposed to pay back the money within the said period. About 4,777 kwacha is expected to be paid within 30 days. National Democratic Congress Party President CHISHIMBA KAMBWILI, who is one of the ministers, says he will pay back the money by virtue of respecting the court.
I am personally going to pay. Suffice to state that it is unfair because no minister remained in office in their own accord. We remained in office because the president directed so. That is why I, with the Constitution of Court, I have a problem with the Constitution of Court because the president directed ministers to remain in office. And obviously, the president acts on behalf of the state. So it is the state that asks us to remain in office. And the law is very clear. An action taken by the president in his execution of his duty cannot be taken to court. An action of the president in the execution of his duties cannot be litigated upon. And all the 63 ministers did not remain in office in their own accord. There was directive by the president, who was the appointing authority, that you remain in office until the new parliament is elected. But the courts have ruled, whether wrong or right, I have to pay.
And GIA's Initiative Executive Director McDonald, who has been a committed advocate for the ministers to pay back the money, is happy that finally the ministers will pay back. Mr. Jipenzi says if they refuse to pay, his organization will invoke the constitutional provision which will lead to the arrest of the people who will default.
We are excited with the decision of the Court that at least we have a time frame. We also have a figure which we are working around for these people to pay. And we know that they are supposed to pay within 30 days, which is very good, because all along it was just pay back, and they were saying we don't know how much. Now they know. So we expect these ministers, 4 months saving, to pay the money. All right? We have already heard some people saying, no, we will not pay. We don't care about that. We shall invoke the contempt of court provisions. And some of them, they will end up having elections in prison. And we are waiting. We have heard Jitka Pata saying he's not going to pay. He's quoted by the Daily Nation. We are going to invoke the provisions that are giving us power to cite people contempt of the courts.
Sharon Kalimbola, Camnet News, Lusaka.
In other news, National Development Planning Minister Alexander Chiteme says climate change poses a huge threat to the attainment of the country's development aspiration championed in the Vision 2030. Mr. Chiteme says to this effect, government has begun mainstreaming climate change adaptation and mitigation actions in plans and policies at national and sub-level national to mitigate its risks. The minister was speaking during the handover of 20 motor vehicles to implementing entities under the Transforming Landscapes for Resilient and Development project in Luapula, Mchinga and Northern Province.
Climate change remains a huge challenge for the world today, and Zambia is also affected. In this regard, government and its cooperating partners has been implementing programs aimed at mitigating the effects of climate change. The Ministry of National Development Planning, being the implementing ministry of many government programs relating to climate change, has handed over 20 vehicles to Northern, Luapula and Mchinga provinces, where a climate change project known as Transforming Landscape for Resilience and Development trial project is being implemented. National Planning Minister Alexander Chiteme says the trial project's development objective is to improve natural resource management in selected districts to support sustainable livelihoods in the event of an eligible crisis or emergency, to provide immediate and effective response to the eligible crisis or emergency.
Climate change adaptation and mitigation actions, plans and policies at both national and sub-national levels. Ultimately, through mainstreaming, we want to contribute to changing, first of all, our people's mindsets, as well as to help build resilience in our communities. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, data suggests that increase in knowledge about climate change can lead to people adopting to positive behaviors aimed at mitigating and adapting climate change. It is also true for our communities to have an appreciation of both individual and collective efforts needed to respond to climate change, to the climate change threat. They need to be educated about the basic climate change knowledge and adaptation strategies.
Charles Mushote has thanked government for initiating such programs in Luapula, among other areas.
Movement in transport will enhance greatly, contribute to the attainment of the project objectives of sustainable management of natural resources and improvement of livelihood among the people in the northern region of Zambia. I wish therefore to state that as provincial administration, in close collaboration with the district administration, we shall ensure that the vehicles and the two boats are used purely for the project activities. I further wish to appeal to all the institutions receiving these vehicles to safeguard them and avoid misuse.
Sharon Kalimbola, Camnet News, Lusaka.
A man only identified as Justin of MKUSHI district in Central Province has died after a manganese dump site collapsed and buried him. The incident happened at around 15:30 hours when illegal miners were operating the dump site. MKUSHI Municipal Council Public Relations Officer Clarence Kauma has told Camnet television that despite the quick response by the fire brigade and rescue team, the man could not be served as the degree of collapse was huge. Mr. Kauma has since sternly warned against illegal miners in the district to stop the vice as it risks their lives.
It is sad to note that yesterday we had an incident. This is a Chiponya area where a man only identified as Justin in his 20s met his fate. This happened after him in the company of other men and women were carrying out illegal mining activities. The said man met his fate after a manganese dump site fell on him and buried him. Quick response, however, by the MKUSHI Fire Brigade and Rescue Team could not manage to save the deceased, as the degree of collapse was quite huge. It is against this background that we as a local authority are sternly warning individuals, business entities in the district to avoid illegal mining activities and other illegal operations if we are to avoid the reoccurrence of such an incident. As for now, all we can say is let us wait for actual investigations to be given to us, as a team has already been put forth to probe further into the said matter.
Transparency International Zambia TIZ has expressed sadness that despite several condemnation and advice to government to address the ever-increasing acts of corruption in the country, the scourge has continued to surge in the country. TIZ Vice Chairperson Ruben Lufuka states that corruption practices hinder the economic growth of the country, hence the need to deal with it as squarely. Mr. Lufuka says it is saddening to realize that Zambia's fight against corruption has been shrinking and its scores on both local and international indexes has been going down in the last 4 years. But Justice Minister Given Luminda says government is waiting on stakeholders to make submissions as to how government can best beat corruption.
Corruption is a cancer and remains a topical governance issue in Zambia, despite the several commitments that have been made by many states and non-stakeholders to address the issue. Over the last few years, Zambia's score on the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index (CPI) has been steadily declining, suggesting that the corruption problem is getting worse. This is in spite of many interventions that have been put in place by both civil society and some state agencies such as the Anti-Corruption Commission (SEC) to curb the problem that threatens to reverse every gain that the country has made. To that effect, Transparency International Zambia is hosting the first ever International Anti-Corruption Conference under the theme Joint Action Against Corruption. Under discussion is why Zambia is not making progress in the fight against corruption despite all the interventions that have been put in place.
So there are various questions that we need to ask ourselves. We do have the laws, we do have the institutions, but we continue to score badly on nearly all the metrics. I looked at another one which I won't present, which is a Millennium Challenge Control of Corruption. Even that, from 2009 to where we are, for 2021, that's maybe the good sign. The FY 2021 Control of Corruption indicator has improved slightly, but 2019 was the worst. So what is happening? What is happening in Zambia? So we can argue, now we've seen 4 matrices. In fact, if we include the Zambia bribe payers, all of them are showing that we're going down south. What is not happening?
And Justice Minister Given Luminda has questioned why the 30 years of fighting corruption in the country has yielded less results.
To all of you, I will pray to God to richly bless you during this conference so that you may deliberate on this very difficult matter and come up with solutions which will assist our country to be a country that is perceived of as one that is winning in the fight against corruption.
While many laws and policies have been formulated to fight corruption, implementation has remained a challenge in that most corrupt cases are within the system that is supposed to fight the vice. It is therefore important for leaders to take the front seat to be the champions in the fight against corruption. Prudence Chota for Camnet TV News.
Well, that news item brings us to the end of Camnet TV Midday News, but before we go, the headlines once again. MKUSHI man dies after manganese dump site collapsed and buried him alive. CHISHIMBA KAMBWILI ready to pay illegal money obtained in 2016. I am Precious Nzeya Sakaleji. Thank you for joining me. Compliments of the season. Good afternoon.